Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
All right, we are back in full effect in the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And I am here with definitely a young man that has covered a lot of ground. And more so than anything, as I always know him and I'm always asking about him, his dad is one of my closest and biggest mentors I know. And there's very few people on that list. My cherished big homie Dawud Muhammad, but we got Jahleel Muhammad in full effect. How you feeling, my brother?
Doing well. Thanks be to Allah, God. It's always an honor and pleasure to be anywhere where my people are. You know, that's where I want to be. And so wherever the sphere or circle, that's where I make myself present to be, especially when I'm called on, and I make it a point. So it's an honor to be here with my brother Kyrie. I mean, we kind of like brothers.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And grew up together in different homes.
Yes, sir.
And so being able to get the same wisdom from my father, and then seeing your growth and development from as an artist, activist in that area, and always being present wherever we are in Detroit, wherever our people are, you've made yourself present. And so that's always been my honor to call myself your brother in a real way, and not just in the sense that we both black in America in Detroit, but a real brother to say, oh, what's up, bro? You know?
Yeah, yes, sir.
You know,
sir. It's definitely bro.
You know, just shy of coming to the family reunion.
Yes, sir.
And so that's been an honor. So I'm excited to be here with you and talking, being able the opportunity to speak to your audience and your sphere of people that I'm sure are influenced under your wokeness. That didn't just come in a vacuum of trend, and it's been a reality for some time.
Yeah, it's taken a while, and definitely through your family, especially your dad, he's helped put some of these wild thoughts into somewhat of a perspective to empower myself in the community. You know how he always presents information. And he's like, well, brother, you gotta. It's like, oh man,
sir. Yep.
It's like, oh, this. I'm not even gonna have a plain answer with this man.
Right? No,
I gotta go back into the wheelhouse of my philosophy.
Never gonna have a
challenging my intellect.
Yes. We just got a glimpse of what it was like for us in the house growing up. You just got a little bit of it. Like, what do you think about this? Like, just be prepared for at least 15 to 30 minutes of conversation for one question.
It's like, so does that mean I can play outside? Or
right.
Or do
what
my
time?
homework?
What is the exact time can we do this? Yeah.
So with that, how Detroit is Different stories always start, and I know definitely a little bit of this. What led your family to come to the city of Detroit? What were the roots that led your people here?
Based on what the history that I have, which is still it's kind of a constant evolving thing, because I'm learning more and more with my family as we go. And I recently saw that there's a nonprofit out of New York City as offering free trips, birthright trips to the homeland, to the motherland of Africa. And I was like, well, let me go apply. It said 15 to 30. I'm 32, but I'm going to try to work a way.
Okay.
I'm going to find a way to make this birthright trip.
You're going to slide in.
But we have deep roots in Mississippi and Alabama. My grandmother on my father's side is from Meridian, Mississippi. His mother is from Meridian. And on my mother's side, Montgomery, Birmingham. My grandfather, he recently passed. May Allah be pleased with him. Joe Gray, that's my mother's father. And we visited him and his family in Birmingham. So that was the top of the year. And so getting in touch with some of my cousins and uncles who are my age. You know, I got a 35-year-old uncle, 32-year-old uncles. Yeah, we the same age, and so just kind of reconnecting with them. But those early roots, my great grandfather, he fought in Vietnam. They came up here, all to working a soldier, and so those were some of my early memories. The North End, they stayed with we ended up moving into their house on the North End. My grandparents, my great grandparents lived there on my father's side, and some of my fondest memories was going there and sitting at his feet, at his chair, and he was just telling us his war stories. You know, me and my siblings, while my sisters were, you know, with my grandmother braiding her hair. Vividly, I kind of remember vividly, for sure, the last, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years while my grandmother was still alive, because she went on first. And when she passed, we moved into that house, and that's where the bulk of my childhood was, right there in the North End. Right, North End Detroit, right near by Northern High School, right there on Hague. So that was like the bulk of me growing up. Like the center of my childhood was there. Of course, my early days was on the east side, Lyford, right around the Detroit airport. All of that over there, and pretty much my whole family stayed on that block. My grandmother owned the house we lived in. She owned the house next door, and my aunt and uncle stayed down the street right across from each other. So we were, at one point, we were all on the same block. Literally on the same block. So my cousins across the street, on both sides of the street, we stayed on one block, and that was on Life from the east side.
And definitely deep roots around that Kettering neighborhood.
Yes, definitely.
Big time.
My parents both are graduates of Kettering.
Okay.
My father, he said he went, he had to go to 12th grade twice, and thanks be to Allah for his mentor, Clifford Sykes, who helped him and guided him on his way. And if you've ever met Clifford Sykes, he's a very eclectic, but he's very super intelligent. And he's just one of them kind of brothers that he did not play any kind of games. And so if you know my father, it takes a special kind of person that really was able to, you know, guide and rear. And so from what my father gave, he was the reason why both he kind of helped them focus and complete school and kind of put him on his road to his eventual joining in the nation. And he said before they came in, him and my mother had already started kind of doing their vegetarian diet already. And then the minister came in, they were at Lincoln University, and in July of '81 when they first heard him, and said they were kind of already prepping themselves, which they didn't know, but it was kind of that eventual role. But our family roots have been deep here, but Mississippi and Alabama, and I have like when I'm there, I kind of feel that connection there, and so we have just from what my great grand on my mother's side, she gave us just on that small part of that history, and my great grandfather, my maternal great grandfather, who everybody said I remind them of him. His name was Percy Lucifer Green.
That is a Southern name if it ever was one, right there.
And they said he sat on the porch.
That sounds like a man that can make some good barbecue. It's like, who?
And
Percy?
he kept 2 pistols on him at all times.
Percy Greens. Like, we going over here for Percy Greens.
Yes,
Greens.
Indeed. And so that was so you had the Greens, and then on my father's side it was Facing.
Okay.
And then so my mother and father, those two, my father's family being from Mississippi, and then my mother, the Alabama. You know.
Yeah, and you know a lot of this history, as I can tell that you're soaking it up, and you answered so many of the next questions that I naturally would have asked. So now I can just kind of expound on some of those questions. North End as a kid, as that neighborhood is flagged by many things for most people. So people think Northern High School, people think a lot of things. I think Deloris Bennett when I think of the North End.
Yeah, Miss Bennett, for sure.
But you know, rest in peace, Miss Bennett. I always love Miss Bennett.
I'll be pleased with Miss Bennett. She was the OG for real. And she did not play that little baby child kid game. She did not. And she got the respect of the young people because of that.
I mean, I've never seen like the way that certain people talk about neighborhood figures and everything, like straight up street gangsters to you know, people struggling with addiction to almost every level, you know, pastors, politicians, like almost every level of people connected with her.
Yes.
And respected her and her family.
Yeah. I think she had very those old fashioned, you know, Big Ma roots, and that was a line of authority that was not crossed even by religious bound. You always respected in that way. And she may not have claimed any religious anything.
She was very she was another one of my favorite big homies. But yeah, she called upon like anything. She's like, you gonna come up here and talk to these kids? I'm like, they ain't trying to hear what I'm trying to say. And she was like, talk to these kids. And then I'll be, you know, rapping with the little homies. So much of what she spent in the park. But what was the North End like growing up for you in that like 80s, 90s area, 90s time, as you know, that was when Northern High School was still open. Most people know it as the DIA, and I'm not sure if that's even still open now. They
may have changed the name of
the women's or
it was
the girls' school. But Northern High School, just in its roots and what it represented, what was the North End like?
We got there, I would say, I'm trying to remember. We moved in 97, the end of 1997.
Okay.
I just remember it was snowing the day that we moved in. So I know it was right November 97. My grandmother had passed, I believe, September, and we moved in sometime after that. And so, like, the first fullness of it, you know, summertime was that 1998 summer. And it was very much so, there was the dope spot across the street, directly across the street from us.
Yeah.
2 doors down, another dope spot. One of the things that my father, he was not going to have his children being raised around drugs and dope dealers. Not in that vicinity. Yeah. It wasn't going to happen. And so, you know, if you know Dawud Muhammad, he didn't play those kind of games. He was a very straight talker, and still is to this day. And so when he saw and went to, and he talked to them, you know, y'all need to, you know, pretty much shut it down, and leave. And you know, if you know any dope boys, that's not like a reality that they're like, man, who is you?
Yeah,
you know, it's
very
like,
much,
you know, who's you? So. I've been here, you know, I do that, whatever. And he let them know, you know, you won't be here long, because I'm not going to have. We can be respectful and all of that and have cordial conversation, but I'm not going to let my children be raised around this reality. Yeah. Being, of course, at this time he's the minister at Mosque number 1, and of course that's not the reality that he was going to have his children up under. And so I remember the day when the dope house across the street was being shut down. The police came and raided this spot, and my father stood right out in the middle of the sidewalk and looking across as they brought them out, and just like pretty much like, okay. And the crazy thing is, we had friends in the house, a young brother that we were close with, and seeing that was kind of a surreal reality, because we grew up, we lived on the east side, I said Lifer area. Then we moved west, Grand River and Northline area. Yeah. And so that wasn't a prevalent thing, not in that area. You know, Grand River, that Northline, Green Line area.
That's like Rosedale Park.
Yeah, it's like Rosedale Park. You know, your older seniors, they pretty much, the lawns is cut and they keep it crispy. Yeah. And the young people that came with grandchildren, and we made friends with them. but that wasn't a reality that we had to face. So that was my first really kind of like, you know, tactile reality.
And even in that East Side neighborhood, because you had so much family over
yeah,
there.
you didn't. It was like a
you
didn't.
Were,
it was oblivious thing.
Yeah,
Like my uncle, my uncle Charles, may Allah be pleased with him. He recently passed, but he was in the gangs in the day. You know, chain gang, the Coneones, and I found out with the Coneones, they said they were trying to say Corleone, but they couldn't say Corleone from Godfather, so they were the Coneones. So, but he was a part of those gangs, and so he had a name on the East Side, and so they didn't mess with us in that way. And so even if they existed, we never knew nothing about it because that was Charlie's.
Unaware.
Yeah, it was like that was Charlie's people. Like leave them alone. And so even if our neighbors were or families were in that, they didn't bother us in that way. That was never a thing that we had to experience. So that was my first like living reality of seeing like, oh, this is what a dope house looked like.
And that reality around that time, because the North End was still so heavily populated with people too.
Big time.
And it wasn't as desolate as some of the other neighborhoods.
Not at all.
And then you also still have like this wealth of a lot of faith going on then, because Bishop Vann was actually still in the neighborhood, you know, and I don't know if, you know, people went to the original church, but the original church, you were almost walking in and like, this is Bishop Vann, like the mayor of the city of Detroit go here, you know, like, like it would throw you off.
Correct.
And then everything with Little Rock as well. Like it was so much of a world to its own, still connected to Detroit.
Definitely faith-centric right there on the North End. From pretty much Highland Park all the way to East Grand Boulevard. Yeah. Was pretty much locked up on that strip with those two. And so very, very faith-based in its roots.
And then even the Catholic Church that's there too. So and with all of that, still the challenges of drugs, prostitution.
Absolutely. Big time.
Breaking and entering.
That was a big thing.
Yes, so, I was going to say, in that neighborhood, it was.
That was one of the benefits of having a Miss Bennett. And the reason why she was able to connect with those people is because she offered a different reality to them, an avenue of escape, if it wasn't but a basketball court. Football, being able to have the field open to run and play football, it offered a different reality.
Yeah, the summer child care.
Yeah.
Because as much as it was a summer program for kids, it was child care so that parents could
work with their mind at ease, because, you know, it was like leaving them with your auntie.
You got that right.
It was trusted. And you knew if they get out of line, she was going to straighten them out.
That was going to happen as well. That was definitely going to happen.
It was definitely some straightening happening. And so, and even in that reality, living before we moved to North End, living with near family and relatives, I still had that experience of the community accountability of you, because they didn't play. You know, if they caught you in some stuff that you shouldn't have been doing, the neighbor got you, and then they told your parents. And then my auntie and them may have found out before my parents came home, and then they got us. Yeah. And then our parents came home. Yeah. And then, we heard that you was doing, like, damn, they had to tell everything. Yeah, no, the whole neighborhood know now.
Yeah, you got that right.
And so, you know, seeing, again, that was my first reality, but also being that we had a friend in that house, it gave me connection. You know, so that's an early connection to what I've been raised hearing my whole life, and seeing the way that we look at our people is very different. But that was my reality, in seeing that side of it, because we grew up fairly sheltered in our understanding around things, which is the job as a parent. They want to protect the mind and the well-being of the children. Yes. But certain reality, one of the things that my parents did not do is shield us from realities that we would later have to face, and then we have to look at them like, tell me about this. Yeah. And so my father and my mother never shielded us from those realities. But that was my first hands-on experience, because I had friends that lived there, and then seeing them shipped moved away based upon their connection to that reality, so that was a big thing. And then the second one was maybe it was 2 doors down from us, and Father told him the same thing, pretty much,
So what happened to your friends?
Move or be moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that ended up being, that cleared up the block, and my father made a name for himself based upon that reality in that neighborhood.
Wow.
Along with him taking my older brother out with the Final Call newspaper door to door to make those face-to-face encounters with our people, because they're in all, we living in all different kinds of realities. Mm-hmm. We come face to face with all the different walks of life that our people are living in.
Yeah.
And so we able to make that human connection with our people to say, okay, this is what we see. This is what we're living with, son. These are some of the realities that we have to face, and we offer a solution to, not just seeing them and saying, damn, that's messed up, but being able to say, well, there's a possible way out of this reality if this knowledge comes to you. That does not have to be a constant in your life. If you move yourself away from this environment mentally.
Yeah, and as you talk about moving mentally, your relationship with the Nation of Islam, and that triggered me reaching out to you too, because Saviours Day will be taking place in the city of Detroit.
Yes, sir.
Sunday, February 23rd.
Yes,
so
sir.
It's like 2 back-to-back big dates. So
Yes.
Saturday night, I'm watching the Deontay Wilder fight,
Right.
and I'm waking right up to hear the brother minister.
Yes, sir.
So with this reality growing up in the Nation, what was it like just being a child in that institution of faith that along with faith comes with responsibilities, protocols, roles, even as a child? What was it like for you growing up in that?
I would say it was probably one of the most beautiful experiences that I had. Of course, everybody has a different perspective to what their reality was. It all depends on the parents. And now, what I will say, my parents were extremists.
To some
degree.
I mean, some of it was could be propelled into that, because that's kind of like the next question is not just being a child in the Nation, but being a child of the minister.
Yes. Oh man, it's a whole nother reality.
A heck of in the Detroit chapter. So it's not like this is the you know what I'm saying? It's not like this is the Albuquerque.
Right, exactly. No, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, no, that's
Saline Nation of Islam, where it's like 5 people. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's real. That has a big part to do with it. I think
so it's almost like you know what I'm saying? You eat 1 bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos. It's like, see, I told you, they with the same poison.
And so you living in those realities, and of what at that time seemed extreme. One of the things, the benefits is always we were separate only from some of the vices that the majority of our people engage in. But all of our friends weren't Muslims or in the Nation of Islam. We were friends with the neighbors, and they like, why y'all don't eat this? Why y'all don't do that? Why y'all don't do that? Oh, this Y and Z, X, Y, and Z.
You crazy. Bacon good.
Right. And I think the environment of Saviours Day is what really helped us as young Muslims shape the reality, because this is what our own black nation looks like. And so it really gave a very beautiful perspective to see all of these people, even the children who have not come into the knowledge of their own being yet. They're living a reality of this is what a world of blackness looks like when we all come together in unity around a common goal. And so, I mean, you look at the early roots of the Nation of Islam when the master, Dawud Muhammad, made himself known in this city in 1930.
Yeah, and let's put it like this. Back to Detroit black history.
Oh, this some
the
definitely,
Nation of
this
Islam
this some real.
starts in
It
its
starts
teachings.
here. It starts right here.
Of the master teacher Fard Muhammad.
Absolutely. And he was at that time went by many different names. They called him Professor Ford, because at that time they did not know, and he did not make known to who he was.
Mm-hmm.
He did not meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad until September of 1931.
Mm-hmm.
But he made himself known in the city of Detroit in the 1930s, and he went door to door selling silks and other raiments from China, the Far East. And he would tell our people when he met them that this is from your brother in the East. And they're like, what? My brother in the East? Our mind is so fixed on, you got to remember, this is the post-Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
We're not thinking anything outside of the neighborhood or the block that we're living on. Mm-hmm. And he's making a connection with us to a whole other continent.
And then also, also information itself was not as readily available for all people.
Yes.
But the blocks between the black man walking into a library and finding that knowledge,
absolutely,
and getting access to that knowledge was very, Google did not exist. So you couldn't just,
as
YouTube.
As our brother Deontay Wilder would say, to this day,
yes,
they still have, you got to show your ID and all of this paperwork just to get into certain parts of the library to get information.
Very true.
Periodics and everything, you have to show. Like they need some collateral, to say if you mess this up, we got you.
Very much so.
And so you're talking about high science and geography and information that he's bringing to our people at this time, but was also a direct assault on a lot of the Jewish gang organizations in the city at that time. The Purple Gang was big time in Detroit, and they were running the rackets in the North End.
Yeah.
And so all the money that was coming through the North End of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, that was going through Jewish hands.
Yes.
Gang members, the Purple Gang. And so when Master Fard Muhammad came bringing a teaching that would pull us away from those lifestyles, this is a direct threat to financial pockets.
Yeah, and I think, as this story continues on, even with the massacre at New Bethel with the Republic of New Africa.
Absolutely.
Before that, the many attacks on the nation's first mosque here in Detroit.
Absolutely.
Go time and time again. As I'm just getting this information from the descendants of those families that were some of the first members of the Nation of Islam. It's like I'm not even that information isn't on YouTube, because some of it gets pulled down and it's not as explicit.
It's not
but some of it
available.
is accompanied with the Detroit Police Department,
absolutely,
the FBI,
absolutely,
many organizations of the start of what the Nation of Islam began. It was very dangerous into what the position that Elijah Muhammad took on.
Yes,
and what happened with Fard Muhammad and many of those other members. It was
and
it was dangerous.
It's so much history, and God willing, we'll have those who come to Saviours Day weekend. They'll have historic tours where you go to see some of the historic sites, accompanied by some of the historic things that took place. But you had this city. The reason why you have the freedom now for privatization of schooling is because of those early followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so when they came and started taking the children, or attempted to take the children out of the homes, but the parents, after they got these teachings, they started taking their children out of the public school. And they said that they were contributing to the delinquency of minors for pulling their children out of schools, and they literally fought with the police department. That's on record. And many police officers went to the hospital. The Muslims was throwing down because they weren't having that. You're not going to take my children from me.
Yeah.
and so this was the early days of the private schools. And so all of those private schools and charter schools, they owe a debt of gratitude to the Nation of Islam, those early followers of the Honorable Elijah
that are
Muhammad.
outside of the system of
Absolutely.
Catholicism,
Absolutely.
and in the Catholic school system, and through the parish system that has been accepted. And as much as it's said that it's a separation of church and state, the Catholic Church has been intertwined.
Absolutely, right in the mix.
In the foundation of America since its inception.
Certainly.
So, learning this and getting this knowledge, just being a child in that household, and who your father was, because to this day, and it's not just me. Back to the Deontay statement. To this day, so many people love your father.
Yes.
Adore your father, but he's still your dad.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
What was it like growing up, and you know, and even like people like me, it's like just, you know, from the left, like this guy that does like more rapping and whatever,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, it's like, you know, these people look up to your dad, and he's still your dad.
Correct.
What was that like? Was it more of a what was the stressors like? What were the benefits like? How did you pan through that growing up?
Well, it was, you know, you have to balance. It was hard to try to balance that kind of thinking. I'm thankful that he's still alive, and I can appreciate him for who he is and who he was to us as a father. But of course, I think there were times that we felt, you know, neglected as children, because you have a responsibility to operate and run in that capacity as a minister.
I'm going to use the statement Tupac said. Like growing up, sometimes as his mother was more involved with the Panthers and what happened after so many of the atrocities to the Panthers, he said, sometimes I felt like my mom was more a mother to the people than her own people sometimes. Like he dealt with that as a child.
Yeah, I definitely think that existed for the family unit. I mean, I have 9 siblings.
Yes.
And so you're talking about having to spread love
yes.
across 10 children
And the
plus the city
and the nation.
And the nation.
Yeah.
And so I think that definitely existed as a reality. But again, I'm thankful that Allah did not take him from us before I was able to see the value of having a father, a real father, not only just present physically, but present for the realities that he's looking. Not only does he have to see these realities out in the world, but in his own household, and being able to address that right at home.
And as you talk about that, he played the role of a father figure for so many.
Absolutely.
As we see the challenges in our community, where I don't even want to use the term absenteeism, but just due to the challenges of America and the strains on black fathers being present in homes.
Yes.
For women and men.
Yes.
He played that role
Definitely.
of a father figure.
Definitely.
With principle, balance, offering knowledge, and being beneficial for so many people.
Yes.
You know,
I think the key for us, what brought it all together and what made it all worth it is, and for families to do this still, is the dinner table. That was a founding stone in our house. When was the dinner table. That was where we all brought everything, good or bad.
Yeah.
Whatever even if your idea was shot down.
Yeah.
We brought it to the table. And that was a place for us. That was our haven to be able to address our father in that way. It was kind of like we sitting at the knights of the round table, and everybody got a chance to voice what it is, you know, what their experience of the day. But that dinner table is so important. I have 3 children now, and my children, they go crazy. My daughter, she's like, family eat, because our schedule is so hectic. When we can actually sit down at the table and all eat together, it means so much, and it goes a long way. But that was a big part of
keeping that bond,
the holding bond of the family and keeping the family together, was sitting at the dinner table over a home-cooked meal and sitting down and eating. And so much to my father's benefit was my mother. and all of what she gave and sacrificed to build us and grow us. It's funny now at work, some of my button, a few times my button came off, just and the women at work see me sewing, and they're like, "Oh, you like sewing for real?" I said, "Yeah, I mean, I was single before I was married, and I had to know how to do these things. So cooking, cleaning, and sewing, those are staples for us in our house. So all of my brothers, that's what we knew how to do that, based on seeing my mother and she watching us and training us in that way, because that came out of the class of the MGT and GCC, which is in the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So she had it in the class, but she brought it home. Wow. And her sons were able to grow up being able to cook and clean and sew. All three of us, me and my brothers, we were all raised up on that reality of you need to learn how to clean, you need to know how to cook, and you need to be able to sew. You should be able to do a hem on your pants and put your button back on, brother. And so I think those are some of the elements that are missing, but she held it down. And while my father was able to be a father to the world and to the city and to the nation and to other people, we had a foundation at home. It's so important that the home foundation, and I know some single women think that they're not able, but those great ones, the one that we're looking to come and see on February 23rd, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did not have a father physically present to raise him in that way. His mother raised him, and he said it's very hard to do, but she was both male and female. She was mom and dad. It's very hard to do, but she was disciplined, and he said that Allah sent him people along the way that would further help him grow, chief being the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that grew him into manhood. But the early days was his mom. And so, and she instilled and beat truth in and lies out. And she also instilled love for his people at an early age. And so that was a shared experience for me. So when I first heard that story from the minister, I said, man, that's me. In that reality that my father did not accept lies and lying in the house. And so now when I'm dealing with young boys now who are, this is what they do, I said, I know you lying before you even start to form, because I'm a reformed liar, brother. So I used to do it, and I thought I was doing it well. And my father would just be like, he'd just shake his head, because he was like, damn, he just don't understand. He think he's fooling me, but he only hurting himself. And so, and I asked the young boys, I said, do you know how I know that you already lying? And they're like, no, why? I said, because I used to lie too. So, and I know the facial expressions and the little micro expressions that your face does when you're lying. So it's that, for that experience as growing up in the Nation of Islam, for me, it was a little hard early on, but growing up, as a father and as a husband, I'm like, man.
You see more of the benefits.
Absolutely. Though now, of course, some things I do differently with my son, because that's the desire of any father, is for his son to take it a little bit further and not be so, tight-fisted when you have understanding. And so many of the, missteps that I'm not able to judge my parents on, that's something that I can take as a lesson for not to do.
Of how to apply.
Absolutely. And
when
apply
you were in the situation.
And so now I have a different perspective on it to see, well, okay, now I understand why he did what he did at that time, but I can do it a little different because I know better now.
Yeah.
I have a little more, my skill set is a little more advanced, and so I'm able to move. But the discipline in the household is what's missing. And so you see the separation of fathers and sons and mothers and daughters, because there's no discipline in most of the households. And most times now, in some cases, the children are more disciplined than the parents, or they're equally no discipline between both child and parents.
Yeah.
And so some children are more disciplined financially than their parents are. And so they'll save up money, and then unresponsible parents take money from the children, like you owe. I'm like, well, I'm irresponsible. I'm saving this money because they trying to get out.
Yeah.
And so the discipline that was missing in a lot of the black families is that discipline in the household, not abuse, discipline. And there's a thin line when you in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, when you do not set up a structure or put a structure in place, and you just now you beat your children, that's abuse. But once you have a structure in place and they understand the clear lines that this is how things should go, now I can discipline you back to the structure. But if there's no structure, I'm just beating you. There's nothing that I'm trying to get you back to, but just to listen to me because I'm an adult. But once you have structure, you can enforce discipline to say, well, okay, let's make a better decision because this is the outcome from these decisions. So I think if we have the discipline, no, you don't have to be a part of the Nation of Islam in that sense, but you are a part of it anyway because you are part of the larger us. Yeah. That is the
Lost Tribe of Shabazz.
we are part of it, and so you are a part. You may not be a member in the mosque, but you will always be a part of the Nation of Islam. That's a reality that most of our people don't want to accept, but it is. That's us.
And that's another question that I have, because even churches themselves, and I assume many faith-based organizations have the, what's our responsibility to the community beyond the membership itself? Churches consistently battle with this as like the role of like the community, especially a black community, as a public figure. And your father was very active throughout many communities, along with certain other faith-based leaders. Were inside the mosque, were there people that felt differently? Were there people that felt like, man, should we be more focused on the people that are in the room as opposed to like welcoming more people into the room? Like, what's the politics with that?
There's always that which exists, and that was placed by our open enemy. There are always agent provocateurs and those who carry the mindset of a Judas in the group. When we look scripturally, when Jesus said, one of you will betray me, not coincidentally, the first one that spoke up was Judas. What you mean? What do you mean? He didn't know it was going to be him, but it spoke to something that had already existed inside of himself that had to be called out. And then you didn't see the reality of it until later. And so there's always those who have a different way of how they think things should be done. But when you look at the early days of the teaching of Jesus, it was very specific to a particular group. They only dealt, he was the historic figure. Jesus was a prophet only to the Jews. He did not go outside of that area. And then later on, he told the disciples, go ye unto all, because it was very specific. So when you look at the history of the Nation of Islam, during the time of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at our inception, it was very specific because we had to be pulled out of a certain way of thinking. And through our progression and growth, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been able to reach the entire world with the same teaching. He didn't change anything. The time release, the time release capsule, it has to be there for a certain time before all of the parts start to get to the other parts of the body. And so the wisdom in what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave, part of it was for a time, the rest was for another time. So there are always those who are, when you're small-minded, you only think about how you're going to be immediately affected by decisions that are made rather than the long-term effects of decisions that are made because I'm thinking long-term. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Minister Farrakhan, he said, brother, you have to think for the whole and speak for the whole. So rather you agree with all of what the minister says or not, his job is to think and speak for the whole. And he has been the only one of black leadership to be out front in that way, to speak on behalf of the whole. Whether they say, yeah, I'm with him or not, he speaks for the whole of our people. And that's what I mean by you're always going to be a part of the Nation of Islam. As black men, we have a responsibility to our people. As religious figures, we have a responsibility not just to speak the word, but actively be involved in it. Because you can say you the most faithful person, but it's without the work, it is dead. So we have to judge those not based upon the friends that they make, but you judge him based on his enemies. Look at the enemies of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and you have to ask the question, why them? Why this one? Why that one? And so they in Scripture it said, you be hated for his name's sake.
Mm-hmm.
When you mention the name of Jesus, that's not, you don't get hated for that. People fall in love with you when you say Jesus. They fall in love, and dang near bowing at your feet. But when you mention the name Farrakhan, oh man, people start getting uncomfortable and they start fidgeting in their seat, because that's a name that without a cause is hated. Is hated because of his job and role to resurrect the minds of our people. And he's not trying to get you to go with him. And that's the thing about Minister Farrakhan, that they're puzzled by. He's not trying to get everybody to get up and come with me. Just change the way that you're thinking and have an immediate effect on the community that you're in. Make our communities a decent and safe place to live. They looked at every march that we had as a rally for him to get people to join the Nation of Islam. That wasn't what it was.
Yeah, I've never in my life, as close as I am to your father, as close as I am to you, as close as I am to so many other people in the nation, Machete, nobody's ever, Victor, Troy, nobody's ever said, hey, brother, you joining? I've never. It's just a different approach.
Absolutely. But the question is, in our teaching, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, make all men and boys join the FOI. Mm-hmm. There's value in the training of the FOI.
And definitely, I trust all of that training. And I think the discipline, and many of our institutions
Absolutely.
do. You'd be surprised. Some of the most gangsters, rappers.
Absolutely.
Most questionable entertainment figures.
Mm-hmm.
To
right.
politicians.
Absolutely.
To almost everyone. When you see who leads their security team, their security force.
Absolutely.
Usually it's FOI because of the discipline.
Yes.
Through the training.
Absolutely. And that's the key. Not that, because everybody's not going to be a Malcolm X figure. Everybody's not going to be a Minister Farrakhan. Everybody's not going to be Muhammad Ali. But the training will allow you to, even if you don't stay in the mosque per se, the training will allow you to go. Now, how effectively are you using the training where you live? Because now when people know that you have it, they're going to look to you now. Oh, what you doing? Mm-hmm. And so to get the training, you may not ever be a part of the mosque or a registered member in that way, but you're always a part of the nation as a whole, under the construct of what is involved. And because as a Nation of Islam, we don't just talk that talk. We have laws and bylaws, and which will allow us to move freely as a whole.
Yeah,
and not just as a singular group.
And let me say this, because as L.A. and a lot of America, and definitely the sports world, mourns the passing of Kobe Bryant.
Absolutely.
This past spring, summer, the murder of Nipsey Hussle.
Absolutely.
Not only did it require the role of the Nation of Islam, the discipline of the FOI helped mitigate some of the conflicts I know people were saying between the gangs, but a lot of that was between the police officers
and our people
that have targeted many people labeled as gang members.
Absolutely.
And Los Angeles itself. So the procession after the service from the Staples Center of Nipsey Hussle was supported and it ushered safely through the fruit of Islam.
Absolutely.
With no guns.
None.
With all just the respect between really representing the neighborhood and the people labeled as gang members.
Absolutely.
And mitigating whatever could happen between the city of Los Angeles. But the mayor of L.A.,
Yes, sir.
The police chief of LA.
Yes, sir.
Were on the phone with the Nation of Islam.
Yes.
To make sure that this happened. But this is the strength of the Fruit of Islam. And I don't know how many people know these stories that exist.
And it was beautiful to see them on Fox News holding up the copy of the Final Call newspaper saying members of the Nation of Islam are passing out these newspapers. And I said, wow, we on now.
Hilarious. Hilarious.
But to see when it start to get a little heated prior to the procession happening, Minister Farrakhan sent a specific message to our brother who's the editor-in-chief of the Final Call, Brother Abdul Rasul, and he gave a message to the people asking them from him for us to continue to respect the family and immediately it got quiet. When he said that this was a message coming from Minister Farrakhan, and all the thousands of people who were out there, it got quiet, and the word passed on down the procession line.
Yes.
And it was peace fully. This is what the enemy of us fear. When not just it's the reality of being able to, with a single word, say, peace be still in it, and that be the reality. They fear that because they've done so much wrong and they would be deserving of whatever came their way, they think that we would, as say scripturally, join on to a strong army and come against them.
Yes.
And so that's what they fear. But our role is to, as long as our people are in the condition of post-traumatic slave syndrome, as long as we're in that condition, the Nation of Islam will have its relevancy until we are raised from that condition.
And as you talk about that, I think of my Uncle Wali, that was with the Nation in Cincinnati, one of the most brilliant people I know, and so many others. But it takes those pivotal messages, as me and my father have these discussions sometimes, to connect with us. Like, so the message of Fard Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Minister Farrakhan, like your father, like it takes Black Man You God to connect with guys in the street.
Absolutely.
That their whole life have been labeled and disconnected from any semblance of relevance beyond being labor and enslaved labor, a criminal, which is another form of enslaved labor, or possibly some game to be murdered, you know, but just completely disregarded. So to be held up in this pedestal of Black Man You God, it changes the disposition and the relationship that Farrakhan has with people in the throughout, but definitely on the streets.
Yes.
It's almost on a different pulse that you've never seen.
Absolutely.
And when I say that, the nation itself, I'm using Farrakhan as a proxy to say, really, the nation, the relationship the Nation of Islam has with the Black community itself is so well respected and adored that nothing that form of power with this group of people that they label as displaced, you know, who the Democratic Party right now is saying, why don't these people vote?
Right.
You know,
right.
Like you can't even reach these people, or we have to spend billions of dollars. Should we give them a free cell phone? Should we, you know, offer them a job? Should we offer them unemployment? Like, where the words themselves just connect because of the reputation and the acts of love that we've seen for generations.
That's major, the acts of love. And it has to come from a real, genuine place. And I think that's what has, especially of recent, has held, and not when I say recent, I mean the last 50 years, has held many churches back because they have not been genuine with our people. And we move often in crisis mode. When you come, it's like, what you doing here?
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, it's good to see you.
And let me say that even going further, like it as an institution, and we're definitely speaking in the macro, not the micro, because there are so many figures, preachers even. I think some of the work in meeting Freddie Haynes that he's doing in Dallas is powerful.
Yes.
But like what happens as they pass on? I have a strong relationship with Frida Sampson, and we think about Fred G. Sampson and
Yes.
what he did at Tabernacle, but how does that carry over after he passes?
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, like, does the institution exist as we see the institution of the Nation of Islam being ever present?
Yes. And on that we are celebrating 90 years this year. Celebrating
powerful.
90 years. And the key is being able to connect with our young people. When you don't genuinely connect with our young people, your organization is doomed to fail.
And that's why the social media, the videos, the content itself. Minister Farrakhan was the first person I saw, as people say, like, I don't know how they're going to edit the interview. You know, he'll sit down and interview with Alex Jones. He'll sit down and interview with Bill Maher.
Absolutely.
But he's taping it himself.
Absolutely.
You know,
so
you
can
learned
get
early
the
on.
facts.
And it's like, so, so, all right, 60 Minutes, you're going to play that version of the interview.
Right.
We have our own outlet to expose what our version of
you
the
play, and they play maybe 30 minutes of the 160 that they taped
and cut
in
out
2 hours.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, minutes. I kill all Jews. And it's like, okay, he never put these sentences together as it's like, show me the speech.
Yes.
And so much of this is documented and it's orated. And right now, as you talk about talking to the young people, the Nation of Islam as a faith-based institution, I would say is the strongest faith-based institution as far as disseminating information through this multimedia wave of creating content.
And it's been the fight that we fought this last year in particular, dealing with social media, them banning the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from all social media platforms, shows you how effective they, from 1995 to 2015, there was a media whiteout of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. They whiteballed him because all of these white executives said, oh, hell no. We cannot allow this message to get to these young people. And so you saw a rise in your post crack era. You have a lot of young people who came up on methamphetamines and, just the pharmaceutical drug industry. Marijuana being, as our brother Dr. Wesley, been weaponized against the young black men to feminize them and take them away from what it means to be black men. And what now the popular term is toxic masculinity. Anything that is representative of what the representation of what men should be as protectors and guardians of the neighborhood is seen as toxic masculinity. Now, there is toxic masculinity, but the representation of being a protector and a maintainer in the home and protecting and securing and respecting our women, that should never be seen as toxic, but that is the image that they will show you that's toxic masculinity. So you're looking at the fight that we fought in this last year to continue getting the message of the minister to our people and trying to skillfully still use social media to do it, even though they've blocked him and shut him down. It shows, so from 95 to 2015, and what broke it open in 2015 is Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club. They utilized their platform to allow Minister Farrakhan to come on as we were promoting for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, which was the inception of all of the young people being awake to who the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was. This was this generation's Million Man March. And so all these young people from the HBCUs, they made their pilgrimage to D.C. And what the minister gave there, two moments in particular that connected with me, because I unfortunately did not get to go to the Million Man March, but I just saw all of the planning that went into and went to the rallies and visited some of the churches with my father, and after with my mother, going to the different places to see, getting a read on how many men that we had actually on the mall in D.C. I was the Justice or Else march in Washington in 2015 was very pivotal for me because it made a connection for me as a young man, and seeing all of these millennials come and hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Two moments in particular, he prayed. He told all of the mothers who were expecting to place their hand on their womb and say this prayer with him. And he said, even if it's a child that you may not have wanted, even if it's a child that you may not have wanted, not through rape, but those, that this rise in Planned Parenthood will force primarily black women to go and murder their child. Mm-hmm. So he said, pray, because he said that every child is an answer to a prayer. So he told them to pray over the womb of we prayed over the wombs of all of the pregnant women who were there in 2015. And then those seeds that he dropped of wisdom in all of the young people there. And at the end, he told us to turn and embrace your brother. And you could feel the magnetism of love amongst our people. And so the enemy, when I say enemy, I'm talking about the United States government, who actively goes against that reality of us uniting together. They went to work to swiftly get him off of the social media platforms. Yeah. Since then, they were heavy at work going after the minister. And so we formed the Farrakhan Twitter army. And so that's where we thrive in being able to defend our teacher in that way. For those who come after him on social media, we go and defend him. And this, and the mindset around we are Farrakhan, because many of us don't even know, but you a Farrakhan baby. So many don't know you came up under his voice and influence, whether you listen to him directly or not. Because as I tell the young people when I talk to them, your favorite rapper is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so they listen to him. Even the young boys that we think are fools, when the minister comes around, they sit at his feet. Yeah. Looking for the wisdom, because they want to know how to be able to do the things that they're doing and get the draw from being with wisdom and not with the foolishness that they really don't even want to be engaged in, but the paycheck is calling them to do it differently. Yeah. And so I listened to the interview with 21 Savage on the Breakfast Club. He said, I would never call my mother and my sister the B word. But I'll say it on the record because they pay me to do it. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, because he said, me? You see the level of wisdom and respect, and they came after him. Yeah. And so
I mean, I think they came after him with the whole, like, he had that comment of what was it? And it was so strange, because it was kind of like him and LeBron James. He had the comment like, I want to make money like I want to get this Jewish money. Yes. So he had that comment, and then like the very next song is, I call it's okay. So for the person listening to hip hop, and this is definitely where like a lot of my older audience is like, this is why I don't listen to it. He has a song where he's like, I call my chopper KKK because it hates niggas. Yeah. So like a chopper is a machine gun. Yep. So it's like a song where he's saying, I want to make Jewish money. The Anti-Defamation League came after him, and LeBron James was like working out while that song was on in the background, and that led to him to apologize. I want to say he took the song off the record, but I call my chopper KKK because it hates niggas stays on the record. Right.
Yes.
And so it's like the messaging like that. It's like
absolutely. And that's been a big drive to silence the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because he has been exposing not the real Jews, and he's made that a very specific. There are real Jews, but the ones that he's talking about are so-called Jews and not a part of the synagogue of Satan, because you are the engineers and architects of filth, which are not rooted in Jewish practices. And so now you see the history come around. Master Fard Muhammad comes to Detroit and comes directly at the bottom line of these Jewish gangsters, the Purple Gang in Detroit. Now, all these years later, here come this other group of so-called Jews coming after Minister Farrakhan, and they first showed their head when he came in defense of our brother Jesse Jackson as he was making his presidential run. So we have to be able to be intelligent enough to connect the dots to see the only one, when you're dealing with our people scripturally, and you asked this question before, he has to deal in the reality of Scripture, because this is one of the things that our people is easily more understood. So when he makes these connections, scripturally, the only one who had ever argument or any dealings with the Jews was the Christ, Jesus. He had an argument with the Jews. And in that argument, he they're basically defending themselves, Abraham is our father. And he said, well, if Abraham is your father, you would do the works of Abraham. Well, damn, okay, well, God is our father. Oh, well, if God was your father, you would love me. And he told the Jews at that time, who were, again, so-called Jews, you are of your father, the devil, who was a liar from the beginning. And there are those who say that they are Jews but are not Jews and are of the synagogue of Satan. So you're looking at it become a manifest, and each time as he exposes these so-called Jews, because we have to know that the minister has Jewish friends who are practicing Jews in the real way.
Yeah, I want to say, like, his last he may mention, like, one of his last books was, like, some of his last writings were,
the secret relationships between blacks and Jews.
Yeah, but that was edited and approved by many rabbis.
Yes, all of the material was cited from Jewish rabbis, lawyers, all of these. And so when they came to him and said that you need to, separate yourself from that because it's a calumny against the Jewish people, he said, well, I will if you will separate yourself from the scholars that we cited in the book. They never did that.
Yeah.
And so this is so if you're not going to give them up, why would I give that up? Because you're confirming it to be true if you will not, what is the word they use? Denounce.
Yeah.
If you don't denounce this. He said, if I'll denounce it, if you denounce the scholars and lawyers that we cited in the book, that's all the right. It's a compiling of information cited from Jewish lawyers and scholars who are seen by those as scholars. Not that we said were scholars, but those Jewish people who see these people as foremost in the history and the knowledge of, and their intricate role in the transatlantic slave trade that they don't want to give truth to. And so the minister has asked, let's have a showdown in public and allow this to be judged by the court of public opinion. Because once you present the facts, it's hard to refute.
Whereas I think Minister Farrakhan may be one of the best people to speak on anything.
Absolutely.
And as we talk about that, with Saviours Day coming, the 23rd, is very instrumental for our community, I believe, for Black people to connect to that message as you talk about just that form of consciousness talking to our community directly. What organizing is happening here in the city of Detroit? How can people get connected to tickets?
Yes.
What should people do? What should people be prepared for? How do you get in the mix if you've never attended Saviours Day?
So this Saviours Day is very unique. One, again, like I said, we're celebrating 90 years. The theme around this Saviours Day is the Muslim program, and that has been printed on the back page of the Final Call newspaper since its inception. And we celebrate 40 years of the Final Call newspaper this year as well. And the first 3 points on the Muslim program, it says is what the Muslims want. We want freedom. We want a full and complete freedom. We want justice, equal justice under the law. We want justice applied equally to all, regardless of creed or class or color. We want equality of opportunity. We want equal membership in society with the best in civilized society. And so that's the basis of what we're looking at this Saviours Day. So all of the workshops will be geared around those questions that are posed and statements that are posed in the Muslim program. Secondly, there is a town hall meeting happening on that Saturday, the 22nd at 2 p.m. at the Shrine of the Black Madonna, and that is the case for separation must be made, because we have to see the value in having our own, separate from the historically and presently white-led and white privilege and the institutional racist structures. We have to have something separate for our own, because we have not been able to see justice, not in the way that it should be seen. We get it in spurts. And the expectation is that should do you good until the next time we decide for you to get justice. Oh, take this win. Take this win. And we ravel so heavy in the wins that we forget about the everyday injustices that happen.
Yeah.
And so Saviours Day, the theme for Sunday is the unraveling of a great nation. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been very silent and quiet on the issues that's taking place in America as they march on into war and preparation for draft is coming. And so if you've never been a part of Saviours Day, one of the things I stress more than anything is, if you desire to see black people moving in unity in what a world of our own could look like, I would highly recommend that you come to Saviours Day. Don't put the religious barrier in your mind. Know that it's just your people. Now, if you don't identify with the Nation of Islam as your people, then that may not be the place for you. You may just your mind may be overwhelmed by seeing black Muslims together. But it is really a gathering of our people that I think every avenue and every community should be a part of, because you will only know where you fit if you come into the room. You'll only know where you are if you're a part of the conversation. And so Saviours Day, again, this was the best thing for me. Is ideal for young people. We have a children's village from our mother, Khadija Farrakhan, is sponsored every year so that she loves the children and she does something for the children every year. We have something for everybody. The military drill competition is on Saturday night. And so those who are heavy into the step shows on the yard, this is what we do. This is how we stump down in the Nation of Islam. And we have our drill competition. And so that has been a draw for a lot of our college students, because they used to seeing the fraternities and sororities do their thing. But this is a part of our culture in the Nation of Islam. You'll be able to get the bean pie. And so if you never had it, that's the place where you'll get it. We'll have the pies on deck. So
okay.
It's really a full experience. So if you really want to know what the Nation of Islam is all about, Saviours Day is the opportune time for you to come. And every year I make it a point to bring a young brother with me from the city of Detroit. I took a brother one year to Chicago with me to Saviours Day, because I wanted him to experience that reality, and he's never been the same since.
Wow.
So I always make sure I take somebody to Saviours Day, if just so they can see, feel, and experience what black love is in motion. Saviours Day is that. It's full of that energy, and really, and people, and we beg for it to be extended for more days. And so one day we'll be able to do a week long of festivities where we all just in the D. Okay. For a week.
Yeah.
And so where we can just have a full experience. So there'll be the Nation of Islam Historic Museum set up at the TCF Center, which is formerly Coble Hall. They'll have historic tours going. There's a movie showing. I can't. I don't have it. Let me see if I can pull it up. There's a special viewing of a women's film showing that weekend as well. They just posted it out. When I find it, I'll send that to you. But there's a filming, a small screen filming of a movie that they'll be playing. We have our Jumu'ah prayer service for our wider Muslim community. That's on Friday at 1 p.m. And that's not just for the Muslims. If you just want to know how to pray, come to Jumu'ah. That's where a message is given, or a khutbah is given, and then we all bow down in congregational prayer. You will experience a full helping of the culture of what it means to be in, and not just in, but a part of the Nation of Islam. Again, you may not be in the mosque, but you are a part of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
Because the wider part of it is our 9 ministries, which deal with trade and commerce and defense and health and education. All of these are a part of what we need to build our own nation. And again, you won't know if you're not a part of the conversation.
If a person wants to get this information, should they go online? Where should they get
Yes, you can go online at noi.org/Saviours Day. NOI.org/Saviours Day. You can click the banner. You'll see the Saviours Day banner. If you want tickets, you can hit me up. I'm on Facebook as Jahleel Muhammad. On Instagram as I am just Muhammad. On Twitter as I am just Muhammad. You can hit me up for tickets, and you can also come to our mosque, which is 19160 Evergreen, and that's usually the ticket hours is between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You can come and purchase tickets. But always, my line is always open. Brother got my number.
Okay.
And
reach out
people
to
need tickets, hit me up.
Okay.
My goal is the venue seats 12,000. And that's the easy number for Detroit. We packed Ford Field.
Yeah.
That's 60.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting Kobo to be filled at its seams with our people and really coming together, because this is a very pivotal message for us to hear. Everybody, we kind of mark time off of what the minister gives as guidance in a world that's going to hell. So it's very, I think it's very important, it's pertinent, because if you are part of that great nation that's unraveling, we should want to know.
Let me ask you this too. Like, as we transition, thank you so much. This is a great interview, and there's so much more I want to ask.
Oh, brother,
I'm gonna get most of your family in here too.
Yes, sir.
I didn't even get to ask you about the restaurant, Mr. Muhammad. So
yes,
a great. My dad
had the
was
fish subs, man.
Oh man, my dad was deep into it was like a veggie sandwich you guys did,
man.
But okay, we'll get to that on another interview. But classic Detroit is different questions.
Yes.
What was your very first car? Year, make, and model. When'd you get it?
My very first car was a 97 Ford Ranger.
Okay. What
I
year?
got it. I got this car 2012.
Okay.
Right before I got married, I was bought it from my sister-in-law. She was selling she's married to my brother. She's Mexican, so her father had a Ranger. And she was like, I got a Ranger. I was like, let me get it. I need a whip.
Where was the first place you went when you got it?
First place I went when I got, probably to work. I was working for WC3 at the time at the old Greenfield campus. They were in the process of shutting it down, and they hired us as my father brokered a sweet deal for them to hire us. And it was pretty much all the brothers for the FOI to get paid to assist, and so that's what we were working.
So you all were kind of like transitioning from that West Side campus to the new
West Side campus. Yep.
Okay.
And so we were securing that site until they fully
made the transition,
shut it down, and made the transition.
Okay.
And that was actually my first waged job that I had, working for WC3.
Ain't that something?
Yeah. It was a big plus.
Went in there, filled out that W-4,
yes,
all that stuff. All that stuff. All right. Next question. You're the DJ at the end of the Detroit fireworks. You get to play 3 songs from Woodward and Jefferson. What 3 songs you playing?
I definitely, Detroit, for some reason, we get on to Thank You, Beverly and Mays Before I Let You Go. That's like a thing. That's a thing.
Yes.
I got to play T Grizzly. That what's the main song, the first song he dropped. T Grizzly.
See. First Day Out.
First Day Out. Gotta play First Day Out. And then I got, just take it old school classic Detroit, that Tone. What up, though?
Okay.
That's for sure, because it's gonna get people vibing. Those are like my Detroit vibes.
They can tell you the younger generation to the cookout. It's like, who put him on the ones and twos? Everybody young be like, oh,
yeah, right.
Oh.
So that's those are. I mean, I feel like they kind of, especially those 2 artists, speak to Detroit. Man, big shout outs to Big Sean and his progress as both as an artist and as a activist.
Yeah,
and really speaking on behalf of our people, and specifically Detroit. Nowhere he goes where he don't mention Detroit. And that's why I love him so much, because he's very a home guy. When it comes, he always got Detroit on his mind, and it's evident when you hear him talk. he loved home. You know, he's a world traveler, but he loved home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So,
And last question: if you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
to Detroiter, it would probably be Miss Bennett. I mean, talking about. I mean, it's funny because Miss Bennett Avenue, because she and I wasn't even connected to Miss Bennett like that, but her name rung waves in the streets, bro. It was really like she was like the godmother of this piece. So it was crazy,
She was.
but it was really like that. And then I would, one of the side streets would be our brother Kwame Kilpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
Many people have to say about him. One of the only mayors that I ever met, that I actually met because he was in the hood on my block.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what up? And it was like, it was that kind of way. And he really was able to connect to our young people.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that he did not, he didn't follow the guidance that Minister Farrakhan gave him, but he fell under the spell of the enemy and really their plot to destroy the image of young black leadership.
Yeah,
and,
you got that right.
So
you got that right. I remember like it was
man.
I want to say that was Tupac Hunter. Like one day after the charges came, Tupac Hunter put in that ordinance to say, if you're a felon, then you have to wait at least 30 years after your felony to even run for office.
Yeah,
I was like, damn. I'm like, man, the ink ain't even dry on like his charges and Tupac Hunter. And it's like the state house moved so expeditiously on some
like they were waiting.
Detroit legislation.
And that's how many of it, I see some of it as, of course, human error and mistakes made as a young man, but the setup is real. And we can't ignore the setup.
I don't. That's even a deeper conversation.
Right. We know as young men, as being a 32-year-old young black man, we got to be able to peep the setup when it's coming, and we have to be able to think our way out of situations and follow sound advice.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when you got OGs, man. Listen to the OGs; they know something about what you either dealing with or what you about to run into. But we got to be able to peep setup when it's happening. That's like street rules. You see them, you see them trying to surround you. You like, oh yeah, they about to get me. I gotta be able to peep the setup and get the hell out because they trying to sneak me.
Talk about it.
So I'm really big on that with our young people and just killing this whole culture of camera phones. While standing by while our women are beating the hell out of each other, are we killing each other, or when somebody else from another community is beating the hell out of us up, and the best that we can do is hold up a phone rather than act. Yeah. And so it's just being able to again peep setup, man. We got to be able to see that coming and be able to actively go against the grain and not be afraid to be the one that went against the grain.
Yeah, definitely, man. This was powerful. I'm definitely going to circle you back. Thank you so much. I can't wait till the 23rd.
Yes,
and like I said, that's a big weekend because I'm going to go straight from watching one of my favorite black champions to another one of my favorite black champions.
I mean, Black History Month already been on popping, man.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Mahomes and got him a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And we just moving. And so we making history while we moving.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, we celebrate our history every day that we live.
True indeed.
In a country that don't give us no respect.
True indeed. But I'm still thinking I got to, and we going to talk more about that. I may need to get Machete in here to talk about that. Last time I was talking boxing with Machete.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man.
Yes, sir.
Peace be.
Yes, sir.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.